Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Casanelli helps me have a realization about Google's new Nest Hub. You know, it may not be best for the bedroom, even though it's got a sleep tracker built in. Plus, we talk about Apple fixing that shortcuts bug we talked about last week, and the Apple Watch being used to measure frailty. Plus, loads of new products for the smart home. We answer your questions this week before we round things out with our picks. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Technology Powers X. Learn how technology is reshaping business through an original podcast from Dell Technologies. Search for Technology Powers X anywhere you listen to podcasts and download each episode today. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I'm your other host, Matthew Casanelli. Hello, Micah. How are you doing?
I am doing all right today, Matthew Casanelli. The pollen has saturated our environment, and that has certainly had an effect on me. Also, my AC is broken, and so those two things compound to, me living my privileged life of having AC is suddenly just shattered while I wait for... It's more about having the desire to have someone come into my home and fix it. And we're slowly getting there because it's starting to get warm enough to where I feel like I'm just a puddle. And so my desire not to invite strangers into the home to fix things is being beaten out by my desire to not be a witch puddle who's had water poured on him. Yeah, that's a weird metaphor. Some of you get it, some of you don't. And we have a lot to talk about here as part of the Lollipop Guild. So let's get going. Starting with Google's new Nest Hub, which we talked about before as it having sleep features to track your sleep. I don't think they call it sleep tracking, though. They have a very specific name for it. I think it's like sleep monitoring because they don't, there's a lot to be, there's a lot of sort of anxiety that comes with sleep tracking, and I think that Google is trying to be aware of that. And so it's called sleep monitoring or sleep sensing or something like that. But anyway, point is, the new Nest Hub, Gizmodo says it makes the perfect alarm clock, which is not a surprise given the fact that it does sleep sensing.
Yeah, I thought this was a funny contrast to the 9 to 5 Google article where their headline for is basically it was review day on Monday for these, and then the 9 to 5 one, it says the Nest Hub 2nd Gen ushers in a radically more pervasive Google Assistant, which doesn't sound as good of a solution. But I thought this was just an interesting comparison of those two takes of personalized sleep suggestions, I think is what it's called. Oh yeah, sleep sensing also. So I thought it was just an interesting comparison between the two. Links are in the show notes too to check those out. But I still feel not sold on it as an alarm clock for some reason. I think it.
I think you might be bothered.
Maybe they're trying to specialize the larger one for a more centralized place and seeking for just like more specific marketing for these, because it is confusing, the difference. Like, why would you need the bigger one? So this is a little bit more differentiated there. But I do think just the part about like your assistant watching you sleep and stuff feels just close enough where I'd rather have it be a separate device that passes the data through. So yeah, I'm not totally sold on it. I think it's an interesting, the whole solely sensing where you can use your hand movements to stop things. I don't know. I just still don't. This seems like a giant alarm clock. Like, I don't. This seems. I don't know. It seems like this is just like taking their marketing points and being like, yeah, this is what it's good for now, instead of just the holistic product. Like, they can do this, but I still would rather use it in other spaces mostly. So I don't personally see a huge appeal in having a giant screen next to your bed as your alarm clock.
I see what you're saying. Some of that functionality is almost wasted having it there beside your bed.
Exactly.
Versus, maybe if they had done an analog, not analog, but like an old school alarm clock or an e-ink display instead, because you aren't going to want to have this big old screen next to your bed, because that goes kind of contrary to everything we've ever talked about when it comes to sleep and what's good for what's good for good sleep. So that's something that I was only thinking of it from the perspective of like how to justify, not because I felt it needed to be justified, but to justify justify for the sake of understanding why this product would be good for sleep. And so thinking about, what they were thinking about in terms of it. And so I thought about, it doesn't have a camera, it just has this, and that makes sense. But whenever we kind of pull back and just look at it from the perspective of, here's a device that has this giant screen in a place where you don't really want to, and it's not like you're going to turn your head to the side and watch a YouTube video or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
In that case,
all of the benefits. I mean, the photo frame part is a really nice reason to use this, and so that does make sense in the room a little bit more.
But I don't have people going into my master bedroom and like hanging out. And, those photos, and ideally, you also don't spend all of your day in your bedroom. I guess, so here's where it does make more sense, like studio apartments or places where maybe the bedroom is not as private as you would have in other places. But you're dead on there, I think, in the end.
But making a product just for studio apartments seems
exactly right, and that's why I mean you're absolutely. I think you've got it spot on there that this is almost a waste of a large screened device if you just use it as an alarm clock, and nobody's going to be toting it back and forth between, okay, it's my kitchen display and now it's my bedroom display, and we'll take it back and we'll bring it back. So that's interesting.
It's both a solution looking for a problem and a problem looking for a solution, but neither of them are the right products to solve it in the opposite way. So that's why it does just seem like they're like, what if you put it by your bedside and we put sleep tracking on it? And they're like, cool, go for it. And it's like nobody was asking for that way, I think. I mean, maybe it is just a way for them to shoehorn it into the bedroom without it being a health tracking device. That can kind of be some of the, like, not legal, but FDA kind of thing. I'm not sure exactly, but maybe. But I just thought it's interesting, and I actually really like the product itself. That's why I just think it, like you said, it's sort of a waste to keep it in the bedroom because there's so much more you could use it with. So this new feature, the main selling point, is one that I just wouldn't even use. But I think the new speakers and everything sound good too. So that is available.
The Verge has reviewed Amazon's Ring's new Video Doorbell Pro 2. They call it Ring's best doorbell yet. Of course, this is a company who is well known for its video doorbells. It makes some of the best video doorbells on the market. The Verge says it has an excellent field of view and video quality, plenty of customizable features for notifications and recording zones, and speedy performance, whether that's sending alerts to your phone or smart speakers when someone rings the bell or pulling up the live feed from the Ring app on a phone. If you can tolerate the price tag of $250 and have a wired doorbell system, and then this is the big one for me, and, quote, aren't put off by Ring's Neighbors app or police partnerships.
They're very upfront there.
Yeah, they do have in parentheses, both of which you can opt out of. Then the Video Doorbell Pro 2 is one of the best you can buy right now. Now, this is an update on the model from 2017. It does not have a battery option, so you definitely have to use it with power to the doorbell. So if your house is not wired for that, then you'll either have to get it wired for that or choose a different one. And of course, then you can pull up video from the device on your displays. The Verge says that because it requires wired installation. It's more expensive than other Ring models, and it's limited without the monthly subscription. That's kind of a big one. Those are the reasons, those are the cons, so to speak. But the tall and wide field of view, that's a big one that whenever you put a camera on the door, you don't want to just see your typical 1920 1080 because you're not seeing the bottom of their feet. And so to be able to see kind of 1080 1920 would be better. The video is really high quality, and it has a fast response time, which of anything, that's the big one that a lot of these video doorbells struggle with. I would love to see, and this is another thing entirely, but I'm curious, and I wish I would have asked Tim Booth this question, if Thread is meant for devices like this, if Thread is specifically only meant to be for low power devices, because I tell you what, I may or may not have a couple of times, because it's just so fun to see how quickly it works. Just opened and closed the door that leads to my garage because that door and window sensor, the contact sensor that's there, literally as soon as that contact sensor breaks, it turns on the light in the stairs that lead up from my entryway. Thread is so fast, and especially from a product that used to just be Bluetooth, where I would open the door and then it would turn on the light. This is like boop as soon as it happens. And sometimes I'll go down into the garage for whatever reason and just have this delightful moment of like, oh yeah, I have that set up. So it's I would love for that to, and again, I don't know if it's meant for these kind of upper bandwidth devices, but to have that level of responsiveness for something like this would be really cool. But yeah, I don't know if that would work. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. Oh, it does. This is kind of another thing. It supports 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So if you do have a router or a router kind of hub, router, a bridge device that kind of is throughout your home, you may find that you can get access to it a lot quicker than you would with other types of cameras, because I've got one that's in my living room, and it takes, probably like 10 seconds to pull up after I get a notification. It kind of loads, and then finally pulls up.
That's pretty slow. But yeah. I mean, basically their conclusion is it can be a little confusing with Ring products, which one to get. And assuming that this is the kind of thing that you get, this is the best one on the market now. So pretty simple solution there, especially I think it being thinner because it's not battery powered seems like an appealing feature, because just having like a chunky piece of metal on the front kind of can kill the fun of it, or just the look. So interesting version there.
It also has this technology that it calls 3D motion detection. And what it does is it uses a mapping application of some sort. I don't know what Ring is using in particular to look down on your home. So it kind of takes a snapshot of your home from up above. And then using the camera, it can detect motion that's out to about 30 feet from the home, and kind of tag that motion on the bird's eye view of your home to show you, you can't quite tell that this is cool. A person, but there was motion, 30 feet out from your home. Which, I think that's a pretty neat feature. If you needed to see, if you got a motion notification and you were wondering, is that my package that's arriving? And then you look and you're like, oh no, that was probably just somebody walking past. And there are lots of adjustments that you can make for how far away it uses, how close it is, etc. And then the other thing is that, as a Ring being an Amazon product, it does have something called ALEXA greetings, which is basically handing over greetings to ALEXA. So it will answer the door for you through the Ring Video Doorbell. So basically you say, hey, if I don't respond to this person who's rung the doorbell within X amount of time? Can you go ahead and talk to them? Now, the Verge article, I'm going to quote some stuff here. It says, there are two reasons I didn't really like this feature. One is since we're still spending the majority of our time home due to the pandemic, I don't really need someone else to answer the door for me. I'm always there. The other, which you could just turn it off, but the other is the idea of having Amazon's ALEXA robot speak to a visitor in my place. ALEXA can ask couriers, to leave a package in a particular place you specify, or record a message from other visitors that will be sent to your phone. In my tests, it works like a typical ALEXA interaction with a slight delay between each prompt. Unfortunately, it feels a bit off-putting and rude to force visitors to interact with an unexpected robot. I 100% feel that way. I would feel awkward, kind of in a way, forcing them to interact with the robot. And then suddenly you're like, this delivery driver goes through way too much already in a given day. And now I'm making it interact with this device instead of talking to me. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of good.
They might not mind, though. I'm imagining as a delivery driver, you're like, I don't want to talk to this person. Like,
that's also true.
They're like, oh, sweet, sure, I'll just put it in the back. And then it's like, whatever. So, I mean, yeah, I agree, though. It's like, I think for actual people that you know, it's a little weirder, too. And it's just one of those things where people aren't opted into that process. So it is just like, I'm talking to a robot now. And it's like your robot butler. It's just not normal. So I think that's the kind of thing that takes time for people to get used to.
One of the things I don't like about any of these or these more modern camera systems is that in most cases, they don't offer what was good about the classical security cameras. The ability to have local recordings of your device, of your cameras kind of like saved on a server somewhere. And some of them do. I have to be clear. Some of them even support, I think it's RTSP, which is kind of the classic way of doing it. But some of them do not. And so you end up having to pay a subscription where it does like 6 seconds of recording padding before it detected motion. And then I think after it detects motion. I would like to be able to just, have it all stored locally, and then the software can process all of that video and determine what is worth keeping, what's worth getting rid of by the fact that it's, tagged with motion. And one system that I've found that does that well, I used to have for my HomeKit secure video cameras, I used to have it turned off unless I was out of the home, but I decided to turn it on because I just wanted to see what the feature was like. And I'm glad that I did because I'm always home. So I never was working before, so I didn't really get to see what that feature was like. And now that I have it turned on, I can scroll back through video and see the detection of, dogs or movement throughout the house, etc. And I like that feature is there, and it's of course, again, not stored locally, so not quite what I want, but it does feel like I have more control over it, which I do appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Fair. Sorry, I guess not much to say about that.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add to that. Now, this next one, it's another, I think, great service article from CNET where they have provided some ways to improve upon or to set up some ALEXA routines. So ALEXA routines are a lot like what Matthew has shown you before with shortcuts, or, if you use Automator on the Mac, or basically any tool that lets you set up a bunch of different steps that can be completed with just one word or one phrase. So what are some things that CNET has suggested in this article?
They just set up some pretty straightforward ones like family routine, fitness day, where it can bug you throughout the day, or Headspace, like trigger phrases for that. I didn't really know that these were as shareable. I guess I just don't try to share them as much, but also just the part about shortcuts is the title literally is ALEXA routines might feel overwhelming, but these shortcuts make them a breeze. And I was like, is that just SEO for if somebody types in like ALEXA shortcuts or something like that?
Oh,
because of the overall terminology now too. But yeah, exactly. This is just to keep the basic information available to people, and that you can go see featured routines and how to add your custom steps or the trigger phrases and stuff like that. So this is always just helpful, like you said, service journalism of, if you didn't know this, here's how you do it. So that's always nice. And then in the same way, the New York Times has a whole Wirecutter article about how to use ALEXA and Echo voice control speakers better. So I thought this was just a good guide too, because a lot of times, especially nowadays, I feel like people have maybe had these for a while and did a basic amount of setting up or things like that, but you do just fall into simple routines, I guess. Not the literal ones, but like I know that I have that where I'll go way too deep and then barely actually use some of the stuff that I set up. So some of it about just learning your voice, or even, I always write this down, that I wish you could schedule Siri commands. That's something that I'm always almost saying, Alexa, Alex, my buddy Alex. But that's definitely, and Google Assistant both can schedule those stuff, which I think is missing with Siri. So also some good guides at the end about how to keep ALEXA out of your private life. So back to that Ring stuff there. So yeah, also great, just simple articles, but definitely check those out in the show notes, because it can be a helpful guide if you are still struggling with some of that.
Definitely. Yeah. These, some of us have figured out a lot of this over time, but as we all have had the time to figure it out, some of us are just checking it out for the first time and are getting these devices for the first time. And so it's really good that, those of us who've gone and done the stuff can spread. I don't know why I put an H in there. Yes, can spread our knowledge about it and kind of help people miss those stumbles or understand even better kind of how it's collecting your information or not collecting your information. All good. Alrighty, let us take a quick break so I can tell you about a very cool sponsor. We've talked about them before on the network, and they're back, and we're happy about it because we love Technology Powers X, an original podcast by Dell Technologies. Each episode of Technology Powers X focuses on a different industry and goes behind the scenes to help you understand how technology is reshaping business everywhere. As is usual, I got a sneak preview of Technology Powers X, and it is very cool because these are some places where you might not consider the technology. It's a formula there. Technology Powers X, meaning technology powers, and then you fill in the variable with whatever it might be. So technology powers beer, or technology powers theme parks. And so you learn about all this tech being used in different ways in different places that maybe you hadn't expected. And so there was a recent episode where researchers who were studying the architecture of the human brain in an effort to develop more versatile AI models explain how that whole system works. Another episode explores the world of professional esports, featuring a behind-the-scene look at Team Liquid and their star player. And one episode talks about vertical farming and how innovative new tech can change where our food comes from, and how this may be the future of sustainably feeding 21st century populations. Technology Powers X is hosted by the very talented Danielle Applestone, a hardware engineer and entrepreneur. Oh, and by the way, if you're a pet lover like me, you got to check out episode 14, The Best Partner for Pets. Here's a clip.
Yet today, technology plays a growing role, not just in happy reunions, but as an invaluable tool to America's animal welfare workers.
Yes, a very touching episode, if nothing else. So you should go check out Technology Powers X. All you got to do is search for it anywhere you listen to podcasts and download each episode today. Just search for Technology Powers X. Again, that's Technology Powers X. Download it today. And our thanks, of course, to Technology Powers X for their support of this show and all of Twit. We appreciate you. All right, let me find the page because I lost it. Yeah, that's why. There it is. So, Matthew Casanelli, why don't you start by explaining yourself? No, why don't you start by explaining what happened last week that has led up to Apple saying that things have been fixed? What's going on? What's going on?
Just from last week, with all the shortcuts links disappearing from the web and the shortcuts community generally, us all being like, oh my God, what's happening? Everything we've ever done is gone now. Apple started to restore. They sent out a statement to Federico Viticci and I saying, we're working on this, which was really helpful to understand. But then what was confusing was the day after Federico was like, oh, some are being restored. And then I was kind of like, all right, I don't know, like for sure that this is all fixed. And so I kind of waited to see if Apple would say anything else about like, this is all fixed now. And then I sent them a message on Tuesday saying, is this resolved? And then I think it's always unfortunate that timing wise, I sent in my newsletter then on Wednesday saying, oh, well, it looks like I just don't know if it's resolved because they didn't respond. And then they immediately responded an hour later, probably because it's like, I'm like, oh, well, I have no comment, basically. Mm-hmm. Not that I actually know how to do PR properly, I'd say. But then I got a comment just saying, Apple has confirmed the shortcuts have been restored. So there shouldn't be any actual data loss, but it still just was a very freaky experience. At one point, I took down my entire website on accident and couldn't get it back up for like 24 hours because I tried to remove 300 posts all at the same time and it crashed my server. So that was fun. But basically, everything is fixed now. We should be good to go. A lot of us are calling for Apple to restore the ability to save shortcut files locally as a .shortcut file, which you used to be able to do in the past, because this just kind of thing, even just having to rely on a URL that is like the second you forget what that URL is or don't copy it somewhere, that's just gone. And so there's no actual copy of the thing. It's just kind of a reference. So it'd be really nice for us to all be able to have local .shortcut files that we could install directly into the Shortcuts app. I think there was definitely security concerns because people would create their own files and then try to add them, and it would just create a lot of unexpected behavior. But it's still one of those things where this was a major scare for the shortcuts community, I'd say. And just having it rely on a web service like that sounds like eventually it could happen again or something. And just the fact that we had to all go, in order to just have any sort of continuity, go restore all those links or change them was not fun. So I'm glad to see it fixed. I really hope this is something that I can just completely forget about and it never happens again. But still just worth mentioning, and that they are restored now. So anything you should find online should be still good to go, which was nice.
Good. We talked about this a little bit. Oh no, we didn't. I dropped this for Mac Break Weekly, so they talked about it a little bit on Mac Break Weekly earlier this week. Apple and Stanford worked together to look at a study of frailty, and with it, they were able to determine that wearables, including the Apple Watch, can be used to measure frailty. So it involved 110 participants, and found that the health monitoring capabilities of wearables could supplement or replace in-clinic tests for frailty in patients with cardiovascular disease. It's measured in terms of the distance a patient can travel in a 6-minute walk. A 6-minute walk test, as you might imagine, is a 6-minute walk where they see how far they can travel. And frailty is when you walk less than 300 meters during a 6-minute walk test. So it says that the study found that the Apple Watch was able to accurately assess frailty with a specificity of 85% and sensitivity of 90% in a supervised in-clinic test. But the significant finding was that it was able to do the same accurately with a specificity of 60% and sensitivity of 83% in unsupervised at-home tests. So this is good for multiple reasons. It means that more the people who are going through these tests will be able to do it more often, and that it can happen without needing any user input. So it's not something that's going to require as much work on the part of the patient, which means that it can happen more often, and you can look at steep, improvements or steep, what's the opposite of improvement? Why can't I think of it? Steep falls and improvement.
Declines?
Yeah, declines. Thank you. Steep declines, and be able to, measure those, but also because, multiple reasons for going in person. One is that it is difficult for folks sometimes, especially right now, to go to in-person tests. Two, because it can be difficult for some folks to be able to make it to those in-person tests, particularly if you're dealing with frailty and in elderly folks, then it could be the case that, they're not able to drive themselves. And then three, it starts to get expensive, whether you have health insurance or do not have health insurance, to go to these kinds of tests because they start to add up on your insurance. So there's all sorts of reasons why remote monitoring can be very good for individuals. And I think that it's great that it can also happen more often. Smart device-based measurements, including both the actual initiated 6MWT, which is the 6-meter walk test, and passive collection of activity data, provide clinically accurate and meaningful insights about functional capacity in patients with cardiovascular disease. This is in PLOS One, which is a very well-known peer-reviewed journal where you can learn more about this study. Again, done by Stanford and funded by Apple. So that's I don't know if you had this, Matthew, growing up, but certainly we had literacy teachings about we had to learn like how to read a research study and how to understand it. And one of the things that you have to pay attention to is how it was paid for. And so it is important to note that it was an Apple funded study that, Apple provided the, it says, each participant was supplied with an iPhone and an Apple Watch running the VaskTrack research app and was followed for 6 months. So, specifically, Apple providing these devices can show that these work. Google could provide an Android phone and one of the Google Watches that I can't think of right now, the Android Wear watches, and see if that would work as well. But I think the more important point is let's not focus on the brand, but let's focus on the fact that wearables can be used for some of these diagnostic tests, and I think that that's only going to improve going forward. I'm looking forward to a time when like sleep apnea tests can be done without the need to. I had to go to this training session and get this special thing, and I had to drop it in some Dropbox at a specific time. And if you dropped it too late, then you got charged, and it was painful to wear and awkward, and all these other reasons why it was not a pleasant experience. And so if we could see improvements in all of that, I think that'd be great.
You got to get your Nest Hub next to your bed, then it can.
Oh my God!
Detect that. I was looking. Part of it is that your watch technically already does this, or I can't remember if they added it in the middle of the study that this can already do it. And what's confusing is that my data is exactly the same. It just has 500 meters for the last year. So I don't know what that means, but I'm not frail, so that's good.
It's good too.
There is some.
Where is that? We can see some of that information.
Yeah, in health and then mobility, which is kind of a newer section that I guess I can put it on screen for a second, but they don't usually show you that information. Or like I noticed that. Sorry, I think there's something hung.
Oh yeah, 6-minute walk. Yeah.
Yeah, they added more stuff this year that they didn't really mention a whole lot of. So, like your VO2 max and all that. Gotta check my levels. But yeah,
yep, I've got 500 as well.
Every day. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means. I think maybe it's just like an average kind of thing of like, can you hit that?
I'm curious if VASC track is available to everybody, or if that's specifically one that was provided as part of the study. Oh, it is VASC track. It says VASC track is a research application developed by Stanford University researchers focused on understanding changes in your activity. So I find it fascinating that they ended up publishing the app itself as opposed to, making it something, they had to then go through App Store approval and all that stuff, as opposed to making it something that could just be installed on devices. I'm downloading it just because I'm curious if you have to be part of a study. Yeah. So once you download and install it, I've got now some notifications in my way, so I can't see if I'm showing it on screen. It has down at the bottom a little entry place for ID. So you do have to enter your ID in order to take part in the study. So not anyone can use it, but it is interesting that it is in the App Store as opposed to just being something that they downloaded to their devices individually as part of maybe, a test flight or something like that. But I guess this would make it easier for folks. All right. Anything else about that?
Nope. Good to go.
This next one is pretty exciting. Apple is working on some new voices for Siri, 2 new voices in particular. And I happen to be pretty excited about both of them.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
That's a new one.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
That's a new one.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
And that's the classic one. Voice number 1
Hi,
and voice number 4 have been around for a while, but voice 2 and voice 3 are the new voices. And when you start, when you go through the process to sign up, not sign up, when you go through the process of setting up your phone, it will now prompt you to choose a voice and will not make it a default. So right now, when you have gone to set up a new device, Siri is just Siri, and Siri had one voice by default that you could then go into the settings and change. And I always chose the Australian male because I liked how that voice sounded. But it was something that I had to go in and do. Now, you will be prompted during the setup process to choose a voice yourself, and there won't be that default of, depending on your location, in the United States of America, it was Siri's female voice. So now, there are 4 different voice options, and they're labeled voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, voice 4. Those of you on Android might be familiar with this with these options, because they had different voices. I think they were just different colors. So it was like you could choose the magenta voice or the blue voice or something like that. I vaguely remember doing that when I was setting up the Google Assistant. And so, I think this is exciting. I switched to voice 2 because I like how it sounds. And I, even though I haven't gone anywhere today, I went into Maps and had it route me some different places just so I could hear the voice in different settings. And I'm pretty pumped about some new options there. I don't know if it's going to make me talk to Siri any more than I already do, but it might. Who knows? Now I'm curious. I'm going to my HomePod, and I'm going to see if I have an update for the HomePod, or if I can even change the voice on the HomePod. Probably not.
You have to be in the HomePod beta, which is not
only for
generally available. Yeah. I do remember that when they sent me an email, and I was like, this looks like a spam. And they were like, people were like, no, that's definitely real. And I was like, I don't believe you. But
interestingly, let me change the focus here for a second. Interestingly, it shows voice 1 and voice 4 as the options. So it's actually, now that I'm running the beta, I'm sorry, folks, this is not very clear, but it doesn't matter. I'll just describe it. So I went into the Siri voice settings on my HomePod Mini, and I've got American chosen for the variety. And for voice options, it shows voice 1 and voice 4. Those used to be male and female, but now it shows me that there are voice 2 and voice 3 are missing from the options to choose. So I like that at least it's updated UI-wise, so I know that change is coming too, and I'll be able to make an update to that when the time comes.
Pretty nice that it has like the natural inflection too, not just the robot versions. Like I've used these in the past with there's play sound and speak text. But if you use speak text, you can literally have Siri read articles and things like that to you out loud using shortcuts and on the HomePod and things like that. So I noticed, I think specifically the new ones don't sound like they're obviously white people. I don't know if you
right. Yes.
agree with that interpretation.
I do.
That like the other ones do sound like it's a white person. And so I think it has a little bit more blending. And I mean, their line is that this is a continuation of Apple's long-standing commitment to diversity and inclusion in products and services that are designed to better reflect the diversity of the world we live in. So I think that goes beyond just gender. It's like also not just like what sounds like a white lady or a white male or something like that.
Yep, absolutely. I am kind of obsessed with voices or maybe not obsessed, but sensitive to voices. I'm always that person that's like, hey, are you feeling a little unwell? Your voice sounds different, and can always pick up on that, or usually pick up on that. And so with that comes, the fascination of paying close attention to the unique changes in the voice or the unique aspects of the voice. And these definitely do not sound like, Chad and Karen. They sound different from Chad and Karen, and that's good. Whether that means that the person who recorded the little bits and bops that make up Siri's voice and then is, AI-ified to add to that, is a person of color or not, I don't know. All that I can say is that they sound different from Chad and Karen, and I think that's great.
Exactly. It's like perfectly ambiguous, which I think is good, whereas the other ones are a little more clearly reveal the biases of the people who created them. So I think that's cool. That's how it should be.
John G in the chat says, I want Twit TV stars to be my voice. I don't think anybody wants me shouting at them from their phone. I'm sorry, John. I couldn't find that for you. John, it's time to wake up. John G, your route is available. I don't know why my Siri voice is creepy.
Yeah, you also went to Hal there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't do that for you.
Let's talk about Lutron's new HomeKit-enabled Caséta wireless outdoor smart plug. That's a lot of words, but Lutron Caséta, I have long held makes the best in-wall devices for the smart home, the in-wall switches. There are fan switches, there are LED specific light switches, there are switches that work better with your classic incandescent and more classic compact fluorescent bulbs, and everything in between. And It's super responsive. Lutron Caséta is awesome. And now they've got an outdoor smart plug that you can also add to your home.
Yeah, and it looks like it's got, I think the most important thing is because it does work with the bridge, it's got really fast response times and reliability, distances up to 60 feet, it says. So
it's also a unit.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's built to withstand weather. Some of the other outdoor options, I look at them and I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure you can protect it?
Have I told you what happened to mine?
No, tell me what happened to yours.
Had the Moros one, which is, I think the product itself is fine. It maybe is a user error situation where.
Oh, don't blame yourself. What happened?
The way maybe I had positioned it, it was like hanging upwards. And so it rained and it just filled up with water.
What?
I think maybe I also didn't put one of the plug covers on the other side. But yeah, it was like one of the days a couple weeks ago that it was just pouring rain. And I was like, oh, God. And looked out and it was like going off of our garage, like straight into the thing.
Oh my God.
And then we had to run to unplug it. And last time I plugged it in, I tried to plug it in later and just definitely did not work. So that element protection IP65, yeah, actually sounds pretty useful. So maybe I'll have to get one of these. I do think it's hilarious that they call it the wireless outdoor smart plug. And for a while, like when I first saved it and hadn't read the article yet, I was like, what is wireless? How is it wire? Like, is it just talking about it's smart? Like, where's the wire not present? I thought that was funny. But Lutron is just well known for having really solid products like that. So I thought this was a good offering.
Super solid, super responsive. And as the video showed earlier that Kevin had played, it's built with a solid core. So that means that even if water was pouring directly onto it, that's not going to be a concern for its outdoor use. That's what you want.
Yeah. These are just really useful. I have the Eve door sensor on our little backyard door, and I mean, we have the smallest strip of a backyard, but we put a light strip out there and a little covering for in between the house and the fence, and it turned that space into actually a really usable space. And so I'd say outdoor smart plugs like this and just cheap string lights are actually a really good place to make even if a tiny little space just cozy and worth spending time out there. So after a year, I mean, not everybody's inside, but after a year where generally people are trying to stay inside more, getting outside just a little bit can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm petting my cat because he came into the room earlier. So if you see me looking off to the side, he's sitting on a pillow right here.
Up next, more more smart home news, starting with IKEA. All right, up first, IKEA's new TRÅDFRI shortcut button is finally available online. And, you know, Matthew, I wanted to, but I'm holding out because now that I'm living that thread life, I don't want to use anything else. The good thing is with TRÅDFRI and IKEA, you are using Zigbee, and Zigbee is pretty good. But the problem is I've got some Philips Hue dimmer switches that I use for a lot of automations in my home, and that uses Zigbee over the Philips Hue bridge. And I, along with several other people, because I've been following along with the Reddit pages. I don't know what they're called. I'm not really a Reddit person, but I've been following along with some of those, and they are, thank you, subreddits. Other people have complained about this as well. There are sometimes some missed button presses. Zigbee, or not Zigbee itself, but I think that the whatever system that's being used, whether it's the firmware on the device itself or if it's something that's built into Zigbee, the sleeping aspect of it is more sensitive, and so you end up you hit the button and it
smack it
wakes
times,
up.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It wakes up and then you hit the button again, or maybe it doesn't wake up the first time. And then after it wakes up, you have to hit it again to actually get it to do the thing. Whereas with Thread, the sleepy devices, every 5 seconds, they check in with the whole system on their own. But whatever it is that they are, supposed to do in your home, whatever their role is, they will do that thing as soon as that role is activated. So an example of that is every 5 seconds, the contact sensor that I have on my door downstairs kind of checks in with the home on its own and then goes back to sleep. But the second that the contact sensor notices a break in that magnetic field, it will immediately send the message that it's supposed to. Whereas I think some of these other ones, you might get it whenever it's in sleep mode as opposed to being awake, and then it notices the state change, and then it does the thing. So I want to buy, they're only $8, these shortcut buttons, and I want to buy 1 trillion of them. I think they'd be great to have, but I can't, because if I do, and they don't work immediately, I will have wasted my money instead of just waiting for, probably Eve will be the one. They've got a button, and so I wouldn't be surprised if their button is the first one to offer Thread support. So it's a conundrum.
That's Eve, or IKEA, as you say, as it should be said.
Yeah, IKEA.
They were classically behind on this whole scene, so now they're just in time to be obsolete immediately. Which seems like that happens too much with smart home stuff, but hopefully that's what Thread stuff will solve. So yeah, just worth noting too. You used to have to get these in stores, so now you can get your TRÅDFRI, or I'm sure you say it differently otherwise.
No,
online.
I don't know how to pronounce that one, so I don't have a different way of saying that one. Oh, this is exciting. And in fact, it's something I meant to do earlier was launch my Eve app and update my my sprinkler, my Eve Aqua, because there's new firmware available for it that supports the Thread radio that is built into the Eve Aqua. So right now, that device works over Bluetooth, LE, and I remember I talked to Tim Booth last week and asked, Eve Aqua is the only device that came in this box that doesn't support Thread. And he's like, yeah, there's a firmware update that's coming out on Wednesday. I didn't realize that it was not happening until Wednesday, but it happened, and it's here. And so I'm updating the Eve Aqua, which will give it Thread support. And so then it too will be able to work over Thread. So it's going to have that Thread radio for a while. That was one of the things that Eve did, was they got in on the ground floor, got in pretty early. And so I'm just out there now, just keeping my eyes out for other companies to add. I'm genuinely jazzed about Thread. I think once I saw it in action and saw how quickly it worked, it's amazing. I've even got, I bought some, I talked about it last week, Nanoleaf Essentials bulbs, and I've got one set up now in my office that I wouldn't have done this before because of the lapse in responsiveness, but now I can set it up to where when the contact sensor goes at any time during the day, then I immediately see the light turns on in the office that I have off, that then can turn off afterwards after like a minute or so. And so it's just a little notification for me, because there have been a few times where I've had a new Amazon, what's that program called? Where packages get Amazon key delivery, where the person didn't know, they were new to it and they didn't know exactly where they were supposed to put the package, or they didn't read through properly. And so they the door that leads from my garage into my house, they like creaked it open, wondering if they were supposed to put it in there, and then realized, oh no, it just goes out here. And so it's just good to, be aware if that light has come on, what I'm supposed to, or that there's somebody at the door, or what have you. And I'm also waiting. So now that we've got Thread for contact sensors, I'm waiting for Thread to be turned on for motion sensors, because that's going to be a whole new world of automation that's just going to open up the floodgates. It's going to be very exciting.
Nice.
What else do we have here? Quite a few changes for Aquara, as well as Eve's own light strip, which doesn't currently support Thread.
Yeah, I did just want to mention both of these got adaptive lighting, which I think is great to see come to more of these products. I actually have an Eve Energy, and I tried it again today just to make sure it wasn't me being crazy, and it definitely does not work. When I plug it in, it gets really bright and then just cuts out immediately, and so I think there's some sort of technical issue with it.
Eve Energy or Eve Light Strip?
The light strip, but sorry. But I wanted to try that adaptive lighting with the light strip too, because I've got the LifeX one and I just use yellow all day long, even though all of the other lights around me are adapting throughout the day. So it's just worth noting that those products do have them, although the Eve one isn't Thread yet, and then Aquara has theirs now too, which is nice.
Yes, and then, that adaptive lighting is fantastic.
Then iMore also has a review on the Aquara Cube, which is the weird thing that I feel like this still feels fake or something.
Yeah, is it April 1st? I think it's April 1st.
That's a good point, actually. But it's a cube thing that you can like pick up and turn over, and it will change a home scene based off of those activities. And I feel like that's just the kind of thing that I would get wrong, or you knock it over and your lights are turning on and stuff like that. Or you can do multiple flips and shakes and stuff like that. So I think I got to try one of these out just because it would be fun, but it doesn't work with HomeKit like built in. So that's definitely, I wonder if they have a Homebridge. Aquara Cube Homebridge. Maybe. I'm not sure. I can look for that later. But yeah.
Oh, does Aquara not work with HomeKit?
Yes, not built in.
Oh,
or the Cube. Yeah.
Oh.
And it plays with their own accessories. So it's kind of an odd thing there. I mean, there's other weird products like that, but I had a custom wooden one that you could just press little buttons on, but it ran off of like a server on your Mac and stuff like that. That was a little too much setup for a lot of people, but I think these are kind of just fun smart home products, and I'd love to see stuff like this get HomeKit, or I don't know, maybe shortcuts. No, I'm just imagining a cube that I can just throw out the wall and it runs a shortcut. That is actually pretty cool.
Just toss it. Oh, like a stress ball. If you squeeze it, it'll, I don't know, play some soothing music for you or something. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And then last but not least, Leviton has some Decora smart accessories that have hub-free HomeKit control. So Leviton is another well-known company for in-wall stuff. And most of the stuff that comes out of these companies, whenever you go in wall, is typically something like Zigbee, because of the wavelength is better for being inside of wall, on the other side of drywall, and potentially metal and things. But they have figured out ways to do this without needing a hub. And so Leviton has some devices that will give you HomeKit control over, let's see, what all is it? Because I mean, there's quite a bit here.
It says integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but I think that the big thing is that it requires a ground and neutral wiring now. So any sort of older homes, it needs that additional power to add that functionality into the product itself. So that can kind of be a downside for folks like me. I haven't actually looked into, now that I think about it, we have heat now. And so I think I can get a heater smart home thing. Although, of course, now it's spring, and so I don't need it. So maybe next fall.
Yeah. So let's see. We've got the Leviton Smart Plug, which you just plug into the wall and will work that way. Interestingly, they also have a dimmer switch where you plug this into the wall, you plug a lamp into it, and then it can work as a dimmer for the light bulb as long as the bulb supports dimming. That is a pretty nifty feature for turning, your traditional lamps into traditional lamps and traditional bulbs into dimming capable bulbs. So the incandescent bulbs will oftentimes be able to support this. LEDs, you need to make sure you get them dimmable, and same thing for compact fluorescence. You'll need to make sure that they are dimmable. But this opens up the door for folks who, aren't looking to add new switches and things like that, but want to be able to dim without that. There's also the in-wall Aquara Wi-Fi switch and the dimmer switch as well. So these all will give you that functionality and work as Wi-Fi. But again, it's adding a lot of Wi-Fi devices into your home. And I'm spoiled now. I'm so spoiled now with Thread.
It's definitely because it's its own going to be on your mind.
Yeah, it's its own little network, and it works separate from everything else over a different. It's 802 dot something. It's not 802.11 AC, and so given all of those things, you're not going to run into collisions. And as Tim Booth explained last week, the more you add, the better it gets, which is just so wild to me. I love that. Thread is really pretty magical. All right, that brings us to the end of news, which means it's time for feedback. What's first for us?
These first two, I want to just briefly touch on as follow-up from 2 weeks ago, because we were talking about YouTube and how you were like, I don't use it, and watch on the TV too. And I thought it was interesting just because people wanted to write in and let us know how they were using it. So Anthony says, YouTube on TV. I watch YouTube every day. I subscribe to Premium just to remove ads. Same, that's what I do. I use an Apple TV and am smart homed up. I like that. The way I watch is through the subscription tab, tool reviews, contractor home builds, cooking, news feeds, CNN, and more, and then the home tab, which is YouTube's recommendations through their algorithms. I almost never use it for search, which is what you were saying. You exclusively use it. I almost never cast or airplay any YouTube videos to it. I think a lot of people are doing the easy couple of steps to log in and set up. Plus, I imagine all the smart TVs that have the YouTube app make it super easy. And when I do use search, I either mouse Siri, sometimes write, or sometimes get it, or pull up my phone and trigger the pop-up there and enter it. So I thought that was that's pretty much exactly how I use it also. And I think the part about never casting is true. Something about that, it's always there, but maybe it's just one of those things that's like too buried. I have this as a functionality in my YouTube shortcut just to AirPlay to the TV, but I think maybe a Siri command would actually be better for that. But yeah, it's like the same thing. I don't always go to subscriptions, but it's always fascinating when you do go there, because I subscribe to a lot of channels that I probably don't actually want to be subscribed to. Like I'm practically shooting myself in the foot here as a YouTuber who tries to get people to subscribe to it. But most people don't actually subscribe to YouTube channels when they watch. Something like 75% of MKBHD's followers just watches thing because it shows up on their recommendations page. And then a lot of the ones that I am subscribed to, I just don't necessarily want to see every single video. Like, I probably want to see some of them. And so that is always an interesting thing there. But this wasn't really a comment or this was mostly just a comment, not any sort of question there. But I thought it was a good observation. And then this other listener says, I just want to give my opinion. Until Chromecast, I used to watch on my phone, but now that I have Chromecast, I watch podcasts more on my TV too. So we definitely got some people who are out there casting it from the phone out to the TV, especially live podcasts, or not live, but even pre-recorded ones. I've been watching a couple of more of those on YouTube too. So I feel like Twit was obviously ahead of it, but it's a slow growth there for just more. I don't know. I've run out of TV to watch in the pandemic. I've watched so much, and then there's just like not necessarily new stuff being made, or there's tons of shows that I would watch, but I just kind of am like running out of Steam to get into a whole new universe that also maybe is canceled or something like that. So I don't know. There's plenty on YouTube all day long. So, but I think it's the same thing of when you don't actually use it a whole lot, like a media tool like that, it's way more limited, and it feels like you only get the Explore tab or the random people you subscribed to 5 years ago or something like that. So good feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Up next, we've got more feedback. This is not so much about YouTube TV, but is some questions and stuff for us. So the first one comes from Kevin. Kevin writes, I have a large shop and 2 motion sensors in it and would like to set up a scene, an automation, or a shortcut to turn the lights off when both motion sensors stop detecting motion. I can do this with 1 sensor, but cannot find a way to do it with 2 sensors. Kevin, this is one of those times where we have to tell you to step outside of the Home app. It's not often that either of us, well, I shouldn't say that, because I think Matthew's more likely to step out of the Home app than I am. The more complexity you add, the more likelihood, the higher the likelihood that something will not work or not work as quickly as you want it to. But if you don't have to add too much complexity, then you can still pull off the things that you want to pull off to get them to work. And so using one of the third-party apps, including the Eve app, would be a good example for this. You can set up a rule for your smart home that has both triggers and conditions. And you can use one as a trigger or one as a condition. And in some cases, you can add multiple triggers. And so with the Eve app here, I've gone in and I've chosen add rule. And I tap next and it says add triggers. So one trigger that I will add is for motion. So I tap on motion and I turn on, let's say, garage motion and master bedroom motion. And each of those has an option for clear, meaning that there's no longer motion there, or motion, meaning that it has detected motion. I have them both set to clear, and I choose add. Now what this says is when there is no motion detected in the garage and there is no motion detected in the master bedroom, because these are the 2 motion sensors that I have, then do whatever it is that I want to do. I can also go on to set up conditions. So I can say when those 2 things are true after dark, or when I am, when these lights are on. I mean, there's any number of conditions I can add. I'm not going to add any conditions because we just want to do when these 2 devices do not detect motion, then turn off the lights. And so then I can go through, add the scene for turning off the lights, and then it will let me do that. So again, this is not a feature that's available within the Home app, but it is available in most of the third-party apps. I'm talking about Eve here because it's where I can do some more management of my smart home, but you can also use the Home Plus app to do this and some other ones as well. But essentially, these ones will let you add more conditions to your smart home than what the Home app will sometimes do. But I'm curious, Matthew, can you do this by way of shortcuts?
You can use convert to shortcut in the home automation. But I do think that the way that you suggested is going to be maybe easier, and those conditions that you set up, I think, are going to be also a powerful addition. The way that you would set it up with convert to shortcut is set up the home automation for a device and then for one of the sensors, and then in there you convert it to shortcut and look for the get state of home action, and then that has, you can select your motion sensor and then whether or not it's detected or not, and then do an if statement where if that is true, then do whatever activity you wanted to turn on, and if not, then just nothing happens. But it is sort of, it's an automation for one of the sensors. So I think you might have to set up both of the sensors, just even so that physically triggering it, like it's a little hard to keep in your head sometimes how to do the logic of some of these, especially if it has like a double dependency there. But I do agree that using just a HomeKit app is going to be easier, but you definitely can do it with that and create other shortcut type conditions. So yeah.
Kevin will include a link to the Eve for HomeKit app in the show notes so that you can check it out. And of course, let us know if you run into any issues with that. But yeah, I definitely think that's going to be your best bet. I would also be curious, Kevin, to know what devices, what motion sensor brand you're using, because depending on that, it could be better to use that app for that specific motion sensor to do the automation. So yeah, get back to us with the motion sensors that you're using. Try to respond to the original email you sent if you can. And in any case, you should be able to use Eve for HomeKit or one of the other third-party ones. I just want to make sure that you're using the one that's going to work the best. And so depending on the brand, that might be a different app, unless it's the Hue motion sensors, in which case you can still use Eve for HomeKit, because I've found that works perfectly well for that. All right, Matthew, what's the next one? From somebody named Matthew. Interesting.
Yes, and I want to read this because I want your answer, because I am also curious. I think you might have missed my tweet that I was like, Micah, what light should I get?
Oh no.
So this isn't literally my feedback, but this is, I feel this. I am in desperate need of, hello, smart home gurus. I wanted to call you a guru. I am in desperate need of help. I feel I am in need of declaring smart home bankruptcy and starting over fresh. I resisted this because I have so much money in Philips Hue, quote unquote, but I just feel the need to rest my idea. So they have 2 Nest cameras, an Amazon Echo, 2 Rokus, a Fire TV Cube that they don't use, Chromecast, Google TV, so that sounds like one of the newer ones, Google Mini, Google Nest Hub, not Next, Govee light strip, Philips bulbs 11, Philips recess lights 5. So to the question, I need help deciding where to go with my voice assistants and lighting. I'm growing unhappy with Hue lights. I just feel I see so many other smart lights that are cheaper and offer a little more in terms of connectivity to smart speakers, brighter lumens, and more. I'm also needed of a vote on ALEXA or Google in terms of smart home controls. I'm heavily in the Google sphere. I do have iDevices, but everything else is Google, Gmail, Calendar, etc. I probably rambled on long enough, so any help is welcome. So my question in the same thing was with lights, because I don't think my overhead lights are bright enough, and mine isn't the Google thing as much. So
yeah, let's start. So yeah, Matthew, thank you. Matthews, thank you both for your questions. Here's where I want to start. I want to start with the part where you talk about smart home controls, and you say which is better, either ALEXA or Google. If you are an iOS family, those work just fine with Gmail, with your calendar, all that kind of stuff. I use Gmail for work. It is the personal email that I use the most as well, and those work just fine with the iOS devices. So I hesitate to put you in ALEXA or Google camp, because what I would recommend, and I'm here now. This is the world I live in now. I would really recommend making the HomePod Mini your method for controlling your smart home, along with your other devices. But it starts with the HomePod Mini, because I'm about to say some things that require a HomePod Mini for the best way to work. So if you can afford to add a HomePod Mini to your workflow, it is the only HomeKit over Thread supporting device that is available right now. And you need that to kick off your Thread smart home, which is where I would suggest you go next. If you can hold out, there are going to be a lot more Thread devices coming in this year for sure. And by next year, I think we'll see a very wide swath of Thread devices. But to kick things off, to have HomeKit support, you would need to have a HomePod Mini. Google is the one who started the Thread stuff with its Nest devices. And so given that you have Nest cameras and Chromecast and all that jazz. You could technically exist in the Google camp, but their Thread support is not blanketed right now. And so it's hard to suggest one of those. So really, my vote goes toward Siri being and I know that's weird to say, but truly Siri being the control for your smart home, because HomeKit just absolutely, in terms of its reliability, its ability to connect even whenever the internet is out, to connect to all the devices because it's local area connection, the privacy and security implications that come with it, and the functionality, HomeKit blows the two others out of the water. ALEXA is great for the fact that it connects to so many, but it has only now started to hold these manufacturers to some really strict some stricter guidelines for functionality. And because of that, you can't count on them as much to do what you need them to do and to do it every time. I could go on and on about why I think HomeKit is the best, but I will, end it there just so I can move on to talk about some of the stuff. When it comes to lighting, at this point now, Nanoleaf Essentials is a great place to look. You can get several, let's see, I believe each of them is it $19.99 per?
15.
15.
Oh, no, wait, sorry, I was looking at the wrong one.
$20 a bulb.
Yeah, okay.
And so let's see what that compares to Philips Hue. Meethue.com.
Those the Hue whites.
Yeah, exactly. See, a white is
for $30. So, yeah.
$14.99 for one Philips Hue white. But if you wanted the Philips Hue white in color, that's going to be like 25, actually more than 25. So 30 to, or four, actually I think it's 40 to $80. So yeah, I feel it is good to go ahead and say that the Nanoleaf Essentials, that price is very good. You get a bunch of these bulbs, and they work with Thread, which is the future of the smart home and smart home connectivity. They will work right now over Bluetooth, but the best way to get them is, or the best way to use them is with Thread. And then that way you're future-proofing your smart home. You know me, if you've listened to this podcast at all, you know how obsessed I am with luminance value. These bulbs are bright, and so you can count on having that. And then the light strip too, if you're interested in light strippy stuff, you can go for that. But yeah, I think the jumping off point there is if you're trying to kind of kick out your Philips Hue bulbs for something new, I am actually planning on doing that as well. I'm slowly replacing my Philips Hue bulbs with Nanoleaf Essential bulbs, because at this point my bulbs are very old. And many of them are very old, and the ones that I have are it would be expensive, much more expensive to replace them. And so I'm slowly but surely replacing all of them with Nanoleaf bulbs, because they cost less, and this company makes very high quality hardware. And then again, future-proofing my home with Thread, which will eventually work with, your Googles and your ALEXAs as well. I'm sure we'll see Thread radios built into the devices that they offer. Google already has Thread radios built into some of their devices. So yeah, Roku does. So kind of going down the list here, you've got two Nest cameras. Of course, if you wanted to add those to your smart home, then you're going to need to get the, what's that called, Matthew?
Starling Home Hub.
Yeah, the Starling Home Hub. But everything else on here, your Rokus, those should work with HomeKit. Not the Fire TV Cube. You say you don't like it and it's not in use. And of course, Chromecast, Google TV, also not. So there is quite a bit on here.
Rokus have all the AirPlay stuff too, so you could still stay in that zone, but just move up a level. I do think, and iOS devices generally cast to Nest Hub and the TV in the same way, so you could still utilize that kind of thing. I'm curious there how well if you can ask Google Assistant to cast your phone, because that would be the one thing that might be like worse off is the voice capabilities for the Google TV specifically. And I will say even, it's hard to tell because I didn't put any sort of generation stuff, but I've always treated like the base, maybe this was the Echo Dot and not an Echo, which is more of an investment, but the Google Mini and the Echo Dots to me were always like throwaway smart home things where I wanted them just to be able to order stuff from Amazon or ask Google questions, but because all of the other stuff overlapped so easily with my iOS experience, particularly, maybe not HomeKit, depending on the specific devices. That's why I've always leaned towards HomeKit as well, because it's kind of like the exact same thing plus some more, as opposed to the other using exclusively one of those other systems. I would be missing out on the whole iOS side of it too. So I kind of agree that a HomeKit could be a solid I'd say HomeKit plus Starling hub to make those Nest cameras still functional would be probably a way to go. And then maybe upgrade the Roku to AirPlay stuff. And then otherwise, yeah, a Mini HomePod Mini, those really are, it makes so much sense that the $300 one would never come into play in this kind of discussion at all. And now is like actually the solution to go forward. So that's why they discontinued that one at least. But this is always freaky though. I mean, that is such a hard choice. I do think out of Alexa or Google though, probably the Google one would based off of this provide a better experience. So
yeah, you do seem to be pretty googly, which is, that's fine. And so given that, I think that you would be better off going that way with it if you choose to. But the good thing is most of the smart home stuff that is the better stuff, the higher quality stuff, it's not cutting itself off from the other smart home options because they're already building, some of the best hardware into it. And if they are building some of the best hardware into it, then you're going to get chips that offer functionality for the different protocols. So yeah, I think either Matthew, who's written in, you can go Google wise or you can go Apple HomeKit wise, and I think you'd be happy in either place. But as far as bulbs go, I really do think that right now Nanoleaf is going to be my pick for the best bulbs you can buy. And Scooter X in the chat has pointed out that Nanoleaf currently has a sale, 10% off for. You just use the offer code Easter egg on their website. But as Kevin has pointed out, a lot of the stuff is sold out. So you might not have luck there. I was able to get some Nanoleaf bulbs on Apple's own website, and I think Nanoleaf is working hard to get these back in stock. But yeah, this is right now, this is the most future-proof you can get when it comes to smart home. And it feels weird to not be recommending Philips Hue. Yeah. As that, but it's just they've so long charged so much for a lot of products that don't offer the functionality that others do, and they have had no interest, it seems, in like stepping into the future. It's just like, and sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or however that phrase goes. Sometimes that makes sense, but there does come a time where you do need to climb into the future a little customer bit. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like them. We're the exact kind of people who recommend that stuff, and then when they don't continue to serve at the highest end or just make it more affordable or anything like that. I mean, that's obviously a whole business strategy of economies of scale and stuff like that, but. Yeah, if you kind of rest on it, then people like us see these new things that do the same thing but better, and it's like, why? It just doesn't even make sense to get the other one. And I think the story too has changed a lot overall. That even just seeing that they have more Rokus and Fire TV, like just simpler, smaller ones, is some of the Apple stuff HomeKit stuff can seem really expensive, and I think this is a good example of it's not a $35 light bulb. Like, that is pretty crazy. And the proliferation of more affordable HomeKit products also makes it an easier to recommend HomeKit, not just on the privacy stuff, but it's not necessarily going to cost an arm and a leg more than it used to always definitely cost that much. So that's easier to recommend HomeKit now too. So
all right.
Good luck, Matthew.
Yes, good luck, and feel free to send us feedback and your thoughts and everything like that. Let us move on to the last segment of the show. It's time for our picks of the week. Matthew Casanelli, what is your pick of the week?
Yes, I wanted to share a shortcut that is otherwise exclusive for my membership. Ooh, fancy. No, but I put a direct link to the shortcut for our podcast listeners because you're all amazing people and deserve a shortcut that works about podcasts. So I made an Overcast controller shortcut, which, if people don't know, Overcast is an iPhone app that does intelligent audio boosting and speed. I don't know how to describe it, but it'll cut out little bits of silence. So anytime I take way too long to make my points or something like that, you can... I don't know, I guess it's weird pitching it against myself, but it's just really nice you can just listen to more podcasts. Like I listened to, I actually uploaded a voice memo that I recorded while I was talking with my girlfriend about shortcuts and listened to it in Overcast through their uploads feature. And it was a 40-minute conversation and it only took me 20 minutes to listen to. So sometimes it literally is just like giving you back your time. But, the developer added shortcut support a couple weeks ago, and I think there was some bugs, so they weren't really working. But one of the really cool ones is that you can get the current timestamp and save that. And so I made in the shortcut, it will basically ask you, it's a save a quote option where if we say something really intelligent, or maybe another podcast does, I don't know how many smart points we're making here. But you can basically type that out, and then it will save. It'll say, like, this is Smart Tech Today, episode this, at this exact moment. All of those are hyperlinked back, and then it'll do a little block quote. So it's kind of a good way to just save something that you heard on a podcast. And then the other, there's a bunch of functionality in the shortcut for just playing podcasts, seeking a minute and a half, all through Overcast built-in tools or the sleep timer and stuff like that. But the one that I like the most also, in addition to the quote, is save links from show notes, because we always talk about something on the show. You want to go get the show notes and go find the product or whatever and buy it. So when you run the shortcut, it will scrape the HTML of the episode show notes, grab all of the links out of it, and let you select from them, and then let you choose whether to open them, copy them, create markdown versions of those links to share elsewhere and stuff like that, or save it to your reading list or Instapaper. So it's basically like, I've always wanted this kind of shortcut. You always go into the show notes and you're opening a bunch of links back and forth or stuff like that. And so this is a all built-in one tool and you can get it in the show notes. You won't have the shortcut yet, but maybe you can run it and then go check all the other articles. So pretty fun. I like this a lot. I always want more tools like this for my podcast, specifically for very specific workflows that I'm going to use over and over again every day. Like, there's so much valuable information. Sometimes I can kind of feel trapped in podcasts. And so I like to save a quote back to the exact moment where they said it. And that's really useful for me. So you all can get that for free. And then also it's available in my membership, which is $5 a month, $50 a year. And I do live streams for members and archive of any live streams I've ever done and stuff like that. So this is the kind of stuff you get if you sign up for that.
Awesome. Yes, go check that out. MatthewCasanelli.com, CASSINELLI. All right. My pick of the week is the Eve weather. We talked to Tim Booth of Eve last week, and folks are very jazzed about Eve's products because the Eve weather is currently sold out on their site and on Amazon. It's available for $70, and it is a little weather station that you can put outside and have it tell you about the conditions, the temperature, the humidity, and it also offers a weather trend. It uses barometric pressure to provide kind of a forecast of the weather around you. And so it can, keep track of what the weather looks like outside. And then also because of Eve's system for history tracking, you can see kind of what the weather has looked like over the past couple of days, how the temperature is rising or lowering, and everything in between. So yeah, it's got weather trend information right on the display. It's got humidity percentage right on the display, which anybody who's listened to me talk on a podcast knows how obsessed I am with humidity. Temperature information right on the page as well. Celsius for you Celsius folks, or Fahrenheit for us Fahrenheit folks. And it's IPX3 water resistant. And so, you don't want to drop it into a pond, but you can put it up against I have mine on my back patio against the wall. And it's a little tiny thing, so it doesn't take up much space, and will let you keep track of everything and, know how the weather is going. And also it's a thread. So it is quick I can, pop open the Eve app and immediately see the weather at a given time, the humidity at a given time. And then that can also be used to set up automations. So maybe on days where the trend is looking like it's going to be a fully sunny day, I would run my AC a little bit longer if it were working. And on days whenever it seems like it's going to be cooler, I could turn up the temperature on or turn off the HVAC system or whatever. There are loads of different automation opportunities available once you've got that information available. And yes, it's future proof with the inbuilt thread support. So again,
what's
up? I was just going to say, being that it's sold out everywhere, you will have to either back order it or hold out until it is available from Amazon or Eve's own website.
My recommendation would be to make sure that you put it in a place that someone cannot take it.
No!
I had mine underneath. I thought it was a good spot underneath like the front of our house. And I don't know if it just fell off and somebody took it, or if someone was like feeling the other side of our house.
Weird.
We definitely had someone last week that I just saw was looking into our garage, and I was like, get the hell out of our property.
Yeah,
like,
what are you doing here?
There's definitely been break-ins in the area. So I did assume, I think I was just like, what's the temperature? And it's like, I can't get that. And I was like, what? And went outside. It was just gone.
No. That's heartbreaking.
Sounds like you need something that can detect. I'm kidding.
Yeah, you need to add a motion detector to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That sucks. Folks,
and now I can get the thread one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Now you have a reason to get that one and maybe put it somewhere else, back patio or something. Anyway, folks, you can email us with your questions, feedback, etc. at STT. We keep it simple, STT@twit.tv. And if you tuned in live with us today, we thank you for tuning in live. If you didn't, that's fine. You can always go to twit.tv/live every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern or 1:30 p.m. Pacific to hang out. But the best way to get the show, as opposed to tuning in, is to subscribe in audio or video formats. You just go to twit.tv/STT, and you can click to subscribe audio, video on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, etc. We're all the places, or we try to be all the places, so that you can get the show. And Matthew Casanelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out your shortcuts and other things, where do they go to do that?
MatthewCasanelli.com/Siri shortcuts. That is where I'm dropping new shortcuts every week. What about you?
I am at Micah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks, or all the ones I've found at least. Or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to many of the most active places I am online. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. So until next time, it is time to say good afternoon to all of your smart assistants.
Have a good evening.
You know what's fun? Android. You know what's even more fun, though? all about Android. That's my show, Jason Howell, along with my co-hosts Ron Richards, Florence Ion, and we welcome guests on each and every week from throughout the Android ecosystem, developers, Googlers, journalists, people who are all geeked out about the Android operating system. We tell you everything you need to know. twit.tv/AAA every Tuesday. We'll see you there.